Hi, this is Deanna Laird with Accounting Fly, and Chris Lezovich is back with us today to have a follow-up session on a lot of great questions that we received during the Government Accounting Careers webinar that we hosted last week. So this session is dedicated to answering some of our audiences, your specific questions, and we hope that we give you the information that you're seeking. And what we've done is organize this in an approach around specific topics. So, I'll name the topic as we're moving from topic to topic. And if you're looking for specific information, hopefully that will help you navigate through this Q&A session as you're listening to this. But Chris, thanks so much for being back with us today. We definitely had a lot of interest in the information that you provided last week, and I think it's great that so many people are interested in learning more about the opportunities that the government has to offer. So here we go. Let's go.
I appreciate the
yeah, sorry about that.
The invitation.
Well, we're just thrilled to be working with you on this. So, all right. Jumping into the questions, we're first going to go into a topic around benefits. We've received a few, I guess, requests for understanding a little bit more detail about the great benefits that the government jobs and opportunities do offer. And one of them was around the student loan repayment. And, a person was interested on if this is just offered as a one-time deal or if it's offered every year that you qualify for it.
That's a great question. Just give you a little bit background. Any type of repayment of loan comes from that department. So if the Federal Bureau of Investigation is offering that program, it comes out of their budget to repay that loan. So the federal government puts parameters around the program, and then it's up to the agency to have any type of combination that they want in order to achieve their hiring objective, or at least with one of their benefits. And so when it comes to the student loan repayment program, I'll give you the technical parameters and then explain a little bit more in detail. The law says, the statute says that they can offer up to $10,000 per year to an employee to pay back to have the agency repay that loan. It's not forgiven; it's the agency repays that loan to the financial institutions. There is a maximum of $60,000 per employee. So whenever they're in the federal service, whether they go from one agency to another, there is a lifetime maximum of $60,000. So every agency, it's within their discretion on whether or not, what type of program they want to offer. For example, they may say, if you sign up for, a commitment of additional 5 years, we'll take $5,000. We'll repay $5,000. If you commit for 10 years, we'll do $12,000 of your loan. And they may offer after that period of time, let's say you were in a 5-year program, and after that 5-year program, and they still offer that, you could sign up again within the agency's discretion, for another lot of your outstanding student loans. So hopefully that happens. And what we're seeing is that in the last several years, we've actually seen a decrease because of some budgetary cuts. I think right now, I believe there are about, last statistics I got, were about 31 federal agencies involved in that program, and that was a down from about 50 the year before. So that was probably 2012, maybe around 50, a little over 30,000 in 2013.
Okay, great. Now, what about vesting? How does vesting work in regards to, benefits of, I guess, the pension benefits in general?
Another great question. Vesting will be, again, this is the amount of service time that you need in order to be access to the various benefits. Some benefits, such as health insurance, generally it can be 60 to 90 days. Once that has kicked in, then you're entitled to those particular benefits. But the retirement benefits is generally 3 years. You'll have to be a full-time permanent employee for 3 years, and then once that occurs, then you'll be entitled to those designated funds that are allocated to you specifically. If it's prior to that, then those funds go into the general fund and distributed among other vested employees. So basically it's 3 years is what you're looking for retirement, 60 to 90 days for most other benefits, with the exception of leave. Leave is going to be from your first pay period, your first, after 2 weeks after your first pay.
So that's interesting. I mean, 3 years seems pretty favorable from an employee standpoint. Certainly heard of much longer vesting periods.
Yeah, so what they found is that a lot of, historically, many agencies have provided a lot of the training. So a lot of the training is usually in-house and starts shortly after your first day of employment. And because they spend a lot of time in some training, and because of the quality of the training, they found a lot of employees that would take the training and then use that knowledge and then go off to other employers and leave the agency. And so, as maybe perhaps an incentive, if they stick around for 3 years, then at least they're going to get retirement benefits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great question.
We had lots of questions, kind of trying to get a better understanding of understanding specific opportunities with the government. And you went over the GS levels in a chart and table that's very well spelled out, but I think understanding it is a little bit more difficult, right? There's some complexity to understanding the different levels and how different qualifications would fit somebody in with the right level. So again, several questions around that specifically, and what I guess in general is the best way for someone to become knowledgeable and to apply that knowledge to their specific situation.
I tell you what, I'm going to talk a little bit about that process, and I'm not sure if I'm going to hit all points of your question. If not, then afterwards, maybe you can, if I miss it, refresh my memory on that. So let me explain a couple things. The general schedule, the GS schedule, we had a previous slide about the entry level, mid-level, and top level range of the GS schedule. So this is the floors on the various building that we're looking at. Whenever you apply, in order to qualify for the position, they're looking at generally 3 different areas. You can a lot of times, at least especially the entry level positions, you can qualify strictly based upon your educational experience, or just educational. If you got a particular degree, maybe it's a concentration in a certain subject matter, but you can qualify for an entry-level position without any type of work experience. Even if you don't have a degree, you can qualify based upon the experience too. So you can qualify for jobs whether or not it's entry-level or mid-level, based strictly on your education and or work experience or a combination thereof. Now, certain jobs also, if you have a particular type of degree, for example, a law degree or a CPA certificate, you may qualify for a position regardless of your education and experience background. So if you don't have experience, that's fine. These are entry-level positions. They're designed for professional positions for folks just coming out of college. And if you have experience, then you can use that in lieu of your education. Combining them may qualify you for a higher GS level. Now, every announcement is going to have a range. Now, this is something. What happens is when you're applying for a particular job, sometimes there'll be a GS range that they could bring you on board for. For example, there might be a position where it could be a GS5, a GS7, a GS9, and a GS11. Depending on your education and experience or a combination thereof, then they may put you in at a GS9 level. So in the application process, you're going to be asked whether or not you want to be considered for those higher grades. And always try to be, I would always say, yes, you want to be proactive and be considered for that. Because perhaps you might qualify for a GS9, but you didn't indicate that in the application process, and you may indicate, I only want to be qualified for the GS5, even though your education experience would get you at a higher GS level, a higher floor, then you're only going to be hired in at a GS5 level. So in the application, if there is a higher range, they're going to give you the option whether or not you want to be considered for that. So it's education. A lot of jobs, just strictly education, you can get on, especially entry-level positions. If you have experience, great. That may qualify for a different floor, a higher floor, a different grade level. So Deanna, there was another part of that question that I just want to give you that background. So let's kind of dive into maybe specific your question there.
Sure. So let me just give some examples of some of the specific questions. Okay. One is, in general, how much experience do you need to work for the IRS when you graduate, or where do you start? And you kind of answered that, but could you give should they target at specific GS levels and have their sight on that?
No level.
No.
I'm sorry, no experience. You don't need experience. So what happens is, let's say just on education alone, a particular job, a lot of common jobs for professional positions, accounting positions that we talked about, auditing and things like that, they may start off, they'll have either a GS5 or a GS7. Depending, a lot of times, if it's without experience, then it's going to go upon whether or not your grade point average. Some of them are a 3.0 or above, some are a 3.5 or above, based upon semester grades at an accredited school. And so if you're a high grade point average, then you possibly can get on into a higher floor. Again, it's going to depend upon most bachelor's degree. You're looking at 5s and 7s. If you are a master's degree, you're going to qualify for not only 5s and 7s, but possibly 9 if you have a higher grade point average. And so those are the areas, those are the levels you're probably looking at: 5, 7, or 9. Again, the professional positions, the accounting positions that we're specifically talking about, or finance positions, the way the structure is, they have a 2-step or 2-grade increases up through the mid-level, which begins at basically GS 10 and above, kind of more or less. And so you'll go from a GS5 to a GS7 or GS9 every year, as long as you have acceptable performances. Without any experience, a bachelor's degree, 5s and 7s. Without any experience, a master's degree, 7s and 9s. That's basically what it comes down to.
Okay. And I guess if someone is looking at a specific job, will the job description that's posted give this type of detail that they need to understand, or is it more explained during the recruiting process?
No, that's another great question. This may be one of the, I saw some, there may be some other questions regarding this area right here. You know, how do you differentiate yourself in the application process? There may be, there may be 1 or 5 or a dozen or a score of different positions, and there may be literally hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And so in the job description itself, in the application, in the announcement, specifically the announcement itself, it's going to describe the duties of the position. And that's going to basically tell you what the jobs entail about. You know, they may also address the type of training, but it's going to basically say, these are the duties of this particular position. You're an auditor. Well, one of your duties is going to be able to, you know, audit personal tax return information. You're going to be able to have to be well organized. You're going to have to be able to schedule your own appointments, some of those type of qualities. And so in the application itself, when you apply for those positions, what I strongly suggest, and this is some of the feedback we're getting from the people who actually do the qualifications for the candidates, is that when you look at each individual duty for that particular position that you're applying for and address it in your response and your resume. And we'll go into that a little bit later here, but so address each element of the duty, whether it be from your work experience, a project that you did at school, or maybe in an organization such as Scouts or something like that, or your work experience. Maybe you were involved in a team building project. Maybe you were involved with an assignment. And so try to get specific examples addressing each of those duties. It is those candidates that are going to filter to the top of the application pool and become superior qualified. Is kind of an internal technical term right there. But that's going to put you in the best position to be considered possibly for an interview. So look at the duties within the announcements and then try to address each individual. Now, some of the duties is that maybe you don't have anything. You have no experience, no education on this particular element. And maybe you can address it as something that you're thinking about. Maybe in the future, I would like to do this, and this is my plan. Show your vision. Show your specific examples of what you're envisioning of how you can address that particular duty of the position itself. So I'm kind of rambling on there, but did I kind of address it there?
Yeah, I think you did. So like if someone's searching for opportunities that could fit them, and let's take the entry level area, okay?
Yes.
When they're trying to find the right position, should they search by this GS level, or should they search by the word entry level, or should they search by maybe some specific job titles? And if so, could you give some examples of specific job titles?
Well, what I suggest, there are 3 areas to search for jobs, which I strongly recommend. We'll talk about searching for current jobs and also putting parameters in to get automatic job notices for future opportunities that are posted on USA Jobs. There is one website, www.usajobs, all one word, .gov. This is where all federal agencies post their jobs to. And there are some exceptions. Some attorney positions are posted internally and stuff like that. But this is where over 95% of federal jobs, civilian federal jobs, are posted. And when you're searching for jobs, like, oh my goodness, there's 30,000 jobs out there. Like, how am I even gonna find a job? How can I even narrow? It seems overwhelming. I'm going to talk about 3 different areas to search for jobs where the jobs that you see are probably going to be jobs that you qualify for. So the first thing to do is you can put the parameters in and always do what they call an advanced search. Advanced search, so when you go to the website, anyway, you have an option to do a regular search or advanced search. I always recommend advanced search. It gives you a little bit more tools to narrow down the type of jobs that you qualify for and you're interested in. So the one thing you can do is do your grade pay, your GS level. If you have a bachelor's degree, no experience, I put in the parameters, search for all GS 5s through 7. If you have a master's degree, search for all jobs 5 through 11 or 5 through 9. If you have some work experience, up to maybe GS 11. But you pretty much look at GS 5 through 7 for a bachelor's degree, 5 through 9 for a master's degree. And when you do that, you're pretty much going to get entry-level positions. You're not going to get the positions that require 5 or 10 years worth of work experience. You're going to filter all those out. So one is the GS level. So that's going to substantially reduce the number of open announcements that you're going to be viewing. The second thing is the type of jobs more in your field. Most of you are accounting and finance, specialties, majors. So if you put in the job series number, there's a thing called occupation and job series number. And when you hit that particular tab in the advanced search, it's going to list all your occupations in alphabetical order, you know, like actuary or accountant, and it will go all the way to zoologist. And that, again, it defaults to alphabetical order. I'm going to suggest do a job series. There's a tab, and if you hit the series tab within the occupation and job series tab, if you hit the sort of the icon of a series, it's going to list the series in numerical order. If you put in the series number 0500, that's going to be all accounting, budget, and finance positions that are available in every federal agency, whether it be the IRS, whether it be the Security Exchange Commission, whether it be the Department of Homeland Security. It's going to post all those jobs. So 0500, and that is going to incorporate all the technical positions, the auditor's positions, and all the examiners and things like that, with the exception, again, in the criminal, I'm sorry, I apologize, in the civil enforcement jobs, the ones that don't carry weapons and not law enforcement. That's in the 1800s. So there's a 4-digit job series number. The first two deals with the type of occupation is. 05 is all accounting and finance positions. And the last two numbers is the specific job within that category. 00 is going to incorporate all the accounting, budget, and finance positions that are available out there. So that's number 2. First one, the GS level range. The second one, the specific job series number, or the general job series number. That's going to eliminate substantially most of the jobs that you're not going to be even interested in or qualified for. So it's only going to pull up the jobs that are, you know, pretty much that you can probably look at and say, I'm interested in that. The third area that you may want to consider, I would only do this only if it's really, really important to you, is location. You can set parameters and say, I only want to look for jobs in the New York City area. I only want to look at jobs in California. I only want to look at jobs in a particular city, region, or state. And so it will filter it that way too. So if you only say, you know, I've got whatever your circumstances, I pretty much have to get a job in you know, in the Miami area. So I'll only look at jobs, I'll only consider jobs in that particular location. And that could be your third parameter, is your location. A lot of jobs may be nationwide, so they'll have multiple locations within the job announcement. And so if you don't, I personally, if possibly working in a different location than where you currently have is a possibility, I would not even consider a location parameter, but some people are, and so that is the third element that you want to put in your searches.
So coincidentally, the next few, or the topic area I was going to mention was around location. We did have a few people ask about either virtual opportunities or maybe smaller markets. So, you know, in those cases where that's important, what are the best chances of working virtually or in smaller city areas?
Okay, a couple, again, and I appreciate you being on you know, listening to this webinar, because you're going to hopefully gain a little bit more knowledge of how some of the process works. Generally, when you're hired or get selected, they're going to have a training session. And that training session is generally going to be in a larger location, usually for convenience, for you know, hotel space, for training facilities, for instructors. So if you're looking for a job in upstate New York, you may have training in a larger city, a larger office. And so even though you may be training in a larger center, your location of where you're actually going to be placed, the offset you're going to be looking at, will really depend upon the availability listed in the announcement itself. So if we're looking in the Midwest and there are offices in Fort Wayne or openings in Fort Wayne, Toledo, Cleveland, outside of Chicago, those will always be available, and the hiring coordinator, the person who actually places employees in the particular offices, he or she will say, upon hiring, hey, we have an opening in Fort Wayne, but the training may be in Chicago or Detroit or Cincinnati, but you're going to, after the training, that's where you're going to be hanging your hat for your first part of your career. So you, at least with the IRS, IRS has over 500 offices throughout the nation, and so the location of where you're going to be actually working could be anywhere from Fargo to Fresno. So it really depends on where the job is, where the job announcement is posted. What are the locations that they're looking to fill? And so it could be a smaller office or medium-sized office versus a large metropolitan area. Again, it all depends on where that particular hiring coordinator, the regional hiring coordinator, determines on where they're going to need the work, where the work is for the people that they're hiring for. Now, as far as virtual opportunities, when I hear that, I think I'm looking at maybe working at home, perhaps, and so there are opportunities to work what they call flexi place, where they can work at home or another remote office versus the office that they're assigned to. I believe that's what the question, the member is asking about. At least that's where I'm going to go with the answer here. That opportunity is really depending upon several different factors, whether or not one of the position allows for it. If you're an auditor, a lot of times you're looking over papers and stuff like that, and so maybe the position itself will allow that. Some positions are, if you're doing walk-in customer service, you're probably not going to be able to work at home to meet people off the street. So the position itself, does that position itself offer that opportunity to work at home or work virtually? That's the one thing. Secondly, there are some restrictions, maybe by union contract and your probationary period. A lot of times, when you get hired, you may have a 1 or 2 year probationary period, in quotes there, and once you satisfy that minimum requirement, then you have the opportunity to possibly work at home. And third thing, it has to be approved by your manager and upper management, but basically your manager. Your manager says, okay, yeah, your workload, you can do work at home. You're a satisfactory employee. You don't need any more training. You've done all the work. Great, you have the opportunity to work at home. And then you give you the options. So sometimes it's bound by a union contract, sometimes it's bound by permission from management, and sometimes it's bound by the position itself. So a lot of positions that you're probably considering, they're probably going to offer that as an option.
Okay. So
but it's going to be, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So in general, in my experience, most people will have to, with the exception of some IT positions, most people are going to, in order to work virtually or work at home or another location, they're going to have to be working for their employer at least for 1 year before that becomes an option.
Very good. Okay. Thinking about kind of qualifications for some of these jobs, and we talked a bit about certifications during the webinar. Mm-hmm. So around certifications, you mentioned the CPA, of course, right? But what are some other certifications, as in specifically maybe the CFE? Do you think that or maybe some others that you would like to recommend would be particularly helpful to get a job?
That's another great question and a common question. There are some jobs that, for example, some auditor's position, and says, hey, if you got a CPA, you qualify. We don't have to worry about all the parameters, what courses you took in school or what specific work experience. You have a CPA, you have a certified public accountant license, you meet the qualification, one element. Or you could have a CFB. You know, maybe that might qualify you for that particular certificate, might qualify specifically for a job. But a lot of times, if you are a CPA, you've got your accounting degree, and so you're going to qualify likely for the position. Although a CPA, you might qualify for a higher level. I don't, you know, the certificates or particular type of experience like that, it's probably not going to help that much for an entry-level position, but it will help once you start getting into the mid-level and top-level positions. Once it's beyond the journeyman level, because that's what's going to be able to distinguish you between the other people that are applying for. So if you're in the professional positions, pretty much as long as you're doing satisfactory work, you're gonna shoot up through the entry level and the mid level automatically on an annual basis. Once you've reached the top of the journeyman level, the top level, usually maybe a GS11 or a GS12, and now you're going to start to compete in the GS12 or GS13 or GS14 levels. That they're going to look at, okay, what have you done in work experience? You know, what have you? Oh, you got a CPA, or you got a CFE. Well, that might distinguish you among the other competitors, the people that are also applying for that particular promotion. So it's kind of, I don't want to. There are some employers, especially in public accounting, that, you know, once you have those certificates, you automatically get a job, a pay increase. That I wouldn't say that is the case in government employees, but it will help you once you start competing for higher level positions. Once you start and try to get that elevated key up to the penthouse there, that's probably where it's going to be helpful.
Okay. So someone also asked about an MBA. What do you think from a pay standpoint? What offers more pay, CPA or an MBA?
A CPA or an MBA. Both of those are at a master's, or what I've seen as far as at least in entry-level positions, probably either one's going to be the same, because it's going to qualify you for the GS7 or GS9. Likely CPA may qualify you for the GS9. If you have just a master's degree, it would probably depend upon your grade point average, whether or not you're going to qualify for the entry-level GS9 level. There are, I'll tell you a personal story. I had a bachelor's degree in accounting, and I just started in the summer, started taking classes in it for a master's of taxation. But as an auditor, I was talking with a lot of CPAs and a lot of attorneys, and I said, hey, you know, and so that was my goal. One of the goals that I was asking, what would you recommend? The actual professionals out there, not necessarily with a government position, but you know, you're a CPA. I'm contemplating law school or CPA. What would you do? And they, probably the majority of them said, hey, it's more time, it's more money, but you may have more opportunities as an attorney. And so I was interested in law, and that was one of my career choices. And so I ended up doing that instead of doing the CPA. But it's all about what opportunities you make for yourself. And even at that high level, a master's degree or a CPA, you've shown the work, you've shown the ability to study and pass, some grueling courses and stuff like that. And so that says a lot about you as a person. And so you're going to be, I think either one of them, at least in the entry level position, is probably going to be the same. Now, when it comes to maybe promotion later on, it's hard to say. I'd say go for both of them there. I don't know. Not really going to make that much difference as far as the entry level position. You're probably still going to get off to the same floor. But perhaps later on, if you are in the accounting, if you're going to be auditing, and the people that you're going to be dealing with are going to be CPAs, maybe that might give you some respectability when you're discussing issues with them, perhaps. Maybe not.
Okay. All right. Well, what about specific courses? So if a school offers a government accounting course, I mean, does it make a difference from your eyes when you're recruiting people? Would you recommend them taking a government accounting course?
I say that one thing I love about my job as an auditor, as an internal revenue agent with the IRS, is that I'm an accountant that doesn't do accounting work. Meaning, I'm not going to be putting together profit and loss statements. I'm not going to be, crunching the numbers and see what goes on the balance sheet or doing the cash flow statements. I have to understand them. And in the same breath, I'm not going to be doing the government accounting courses. I'm not going to be doing that, but to understand them. We do have specialties in when they do auditing of municipalities and where they use governmental accounting, and so that could be helpful. That might be, that's not going to get you the job, but it may differentiate yourself if you're applying for perhaps a specialty when it comes to looking at auditing perhaps city bonds that are being issued. I'm going to understand a little bit more about governmental accounting and how that process works. And so your first step as an auditor, one of your first steps is not your first step, but you're going to be looking at the books and records. So understanding how particularly journal entries are done, particularly accounting systems work. That's a great part of the benefit is you're going to see all different types of accounting systems, and so taking a course in governmental accounting would be helpful because there may be an opportunity to audit an entity that uses that government accounting, and so you kind of rig yourself from that learning curve. And so there have been some issues where I didn't know, and I had to get a kind of a crash course on understanding the system. So it's not essential, governmental accounting, because you're not going to be doing accounting. You're going to be but you have to understand the transactions, the footnotes, the journal entries and stuff like that. So it would be helpful. Everything, your diversity in your accounting skills is always helpful. And that's one thing that perhaps could sell you, maybe differentiate you in an interview. It's helpful. It could be helpful if you learn how to apply it, but it's not essential.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the application process. I think
Sure.
Many people are very interested in taking advantage of these opportunities and really trying to find a job here. So around timing, you talked about hiring freeze a bit, and then also many of our attendees are students, right? So we have to think about a recruitment cycle of before they've actually graduated, so they're really not maybe quite qualified, but they will be soon, and they wanted to get a jump on getting into the process and finding the job early enough before they graduate. So how do you recommend that they approach the timing of when they apply, and especially in light of the hiring freeze situation?
I think that some great questions that have been asked and incorporated in that statement right there. Unlike in the private sector or public accounting, they say, hey, we're hiring, they could possibly bring you on board as little as 2 weeks or something like that. The process with government, getting a government position, is substantially different. You have to qualify at the time you are hired, not the time that you apply. Sometimes the application process can be, they say 1 to 4 months long. In the job announcement, they may say when the starting date is and the deadline of applying. So again, a lot of folks apply in the beginning of their last semester because that's kind of maybe a 3 or 4 month window, and they're going to be eligible at the time that they qualify for the position. So that's the key thing. Even though you don't you're not going to be eligible now, but by the time they actually come on board, then you're going to be eligible. So that's the key thing. So just because you're not eligible today, but you're going to be eligible at the time they start, that's the key. That's the important part. So that's when to apply. Again, most of the process can take as 1 to 4 months. A lot of times it's more in the 3 to 4 months area time frame before an actual job is closed on USA Jobs to when they actually start. With the exception of some of the criminal enforcement, sometimes that could take 9 to 12 months long. So if you're ever interested in a position as a special agent, the one that has criminal enforcement, the ones that go through weapons training, that process could last an entire year. And so we have a lot of people that are junior statuses applying for that particular position because they are hoping to qualify, in 1 year when they graduate from college. Secondly, the hiring freeze with the congressional appropriations has been restricted over the last 4 or 5 years, and with the exception of perhaps the U.S. Department and Homeland Security agencies or departments, most of the other federal agencies, FBI and IRS specifically, we've been what they call a hiring freeze. Now, what the hiring freeze, what that means is that it doesn't mean that they're not hiring. It pretty much means that they're limited to what they're hiring. So they'll always have a position. If they need a particular position in a particular location, due to retirement or because of the workload need, management will decide, hey, we can we'll look. They'll hire or make an announcement for that particular location for that particular position. So working in conjunction with management, they'll try to figure out where the hiring needs are still. Unlike hiring waves where they'll hire hundreds and hundreds of people at one time, they're not doing that during the hiring freeze. They just don't have the resources for training and for payroll and things like that. So we have quote-unquote hiring freeze. So that means that they're restricted for external hiring, but there are still opportunities out there. And so one of the things that you never know when those opportunities come along. We had a position where they were looking for a criminal investigation agent, and the position itself opened in the morning and it closed at midnight that night. It was open for like 13 hours and then it closed. And so some people got notified of that as soon as it was posted by going into their we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail, but those people that are familiar with USA Jobs, you have to set up an account in there. Then within your account, they have a thing called Save Searches, and you put your parameters in as if you're searching for a current job. And again, within Save Searches within your account, you can set up those parameters. And that's what they did, is they set up parameters. So as soon as that particular position is announced, they're going to get the email notification of that, and then they can apply online. Immediately as soon as they got it, and those people, and we had several hundred people apply even in that short window. So you never know when those opportunities are going to happen, and they are going to happen. They're going to be happening, maybe not in the quantity that they've had prior to the hiring freeze. And what we're seeing now is it looks like several agencies that freeze is being thawed out, and with the Congress still working on the appropriations for fiscal year 2016, which begins October 1st, this summer or this fall. And so it looks like they're starting to get a little bit more money available, at least for at least in the human resources area right there.
Okay, and you referenced
so with
that.
a hiring freeze, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sure.
I'll jump in after you're done.
You can't apply until there's actually an open announcement. You can't put on a roster. But some of the announcements will say, we're collecting applicants right now for future hiring, and that could be an announcement. But there's always going to have an announcement on USA Jobs, and so instead of looking on there periodically, if you can go into your account, set up an account, and do what they call Save Searches, you can set your parameters. Again, what we talked about earlier. maybe location, your GS levels, and your job series number. Again, GS levels 5 through 7 for bachelor's, 5 through 9 for a master's degree, and your accounting positions, your serial number 0500. If you put those in, as soon as a job announcement that hits those parameters, or hit those criteria, is posted, they're going to send you out an email notification automatically. So you can view it and say, yes, no, 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 I'm going to apply for this one.
Yeah, that's a nice tool. You mentioned that we'll go into more detail about this. I think you're referencing some of our future webinars, right? Will you be able to walk through and give some specific examples, maybe, later in the summer?
Yeah, we're envisioning another webinar where we're going specifically about more details about particularly job occupations and maybe job announcements that are coming up, and actually how the application process works, a little bit more detail so you understand it, and if you have problems, who do you contact, giving you all the tools to be successful in the application process for federal employment, at least for the federal application process.
That's perfect.
One other thing I do want to mention is that people have asked me about, what about resumes? What about resumes? One of the things you can do prior to this is get all your ducks in a row, so to speak. So when that announcement does come out, you have your whole resume already filed and all your transcripts uploaded and everything like that. The two things that you can work on right now is to work on your account, and within your account is to get it best prepared so when those announcements come up that it's easy to apply. Because what happens is when you apply, they're going to say, hey, what's your username and ID, password? So you put it in there, it automatically uploads your resume information into the application, and then you may have to answer a few questions specifically for that particular job. But substantially most of the information is automatically uploaded when you apply for it because they're taking the information from your resume. And so what about this resume? How do you do that? You can put up to 5 resumes on your in your file, but there are 2 methods of getting your resume in your account. One is that you can upload it. You have a Word document, let's say, for example, and it will automatically upload. And second thing, you can go what they call build a resume. That could take that's a longer process, obviously. But I do recommend that, especially if you have the time available, is that they're asking specific questions about questions that are going to be in the pretty much all applications, all open announcements. I'm sorry, all. And so they're going to ask you questions about, maybe things you may not consider. Maybe it's a foreign language that is part of your skill set, things that you might have not been aware of. It allows you to, it's a little bit more detailed, it's a little more cumbersome. Now, you can't upload your entire resume when you build a resume, but each question you can cut and paste, and for each question, you got to do one question at a time, you can cut and paste into when you build a resume, but you can't do multiple questions. It's a little bit more time, but I think it's a little bit more in-depth, and it kind of, quote-unquote, builds a government resume. And then, secondly, so that's a little bit about the resume, something that you can prepare and get into there, get into your account, and so it's always there. You can always change your resume and update the resume, and then it will all make an update to any future jobs that you apply for. But here's a question. What happens that you got a resume and you apply for a position, and all of a sudden they ask you some questions about the job. You look at the duties of that job. You say, wait a minute, I should put that in my resume. Well, you could actually go and update your resume and then sort of reapply, and they go, oh, we've already reapplied. So every time you actually apply or open up your job application, it's going to update the most current resume that you have on file. So you can always change your resume and then go into the application again, and it will that's how you update the most current resume information. Secondly, they're going to ask for transcripts. And what they're doing is they're asking for unofficial transcripts. So not official transcripts, but unofficial transcripts. So that's something that you can do and obtain usually through your school network and actually upload that. And that's something that's to save time that when you actually apply for the position, those two major things are already taking place.
Okay, great. It sounds like, you know, going through the building a resume is going to have a greater chance of providing valuable information and therefore maybe enhance the qualification or searchability. So it seems like time will.
I would say potentially could do that, but you know, some of these positions, especially in the accounting field, they may have you know, the first thing is whether or not you're going to qualify for it, and that, you know, do you have the proper school education? Do you have? Are you a U.S. citizen? Do you have the particular work experience required to qualify for that position? Once you qualify, there may be some additional assessments that you're going to be subject to. So you may actually take a simulation or an accounting simulation, you know, and so that is, you know, kind of like you qualified, you kind of got your foot in the door, now you got to prove yourself. So that's what the various assessments that they go through is really what's going to differentiate one candidate over the next candidate. But I've always, just, and again, that's my personal preference. I like building a resume just to see. You can actually, if you don't want to do that, you want to upload one, go through building a resume and see what they're asking, and then incorporate that into your Word document, your resume, and then upload the resume. You can always do that, but see the areas that they're covering, and that's the only, I think, one of the major advantages is that they're pretty thorough, and you just don't want to miss one aspect that maybe you didn't have in your current resume.
Right.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Got a couple questions about the clearance, the security clearance process, like how long it takes and how is it achieved?
Okay. I've gotten several candidates say, well, I've already got it. You know, I've already got a security clearance. Well, that's great, but it's probably not relevant for the position that you're applying for, because every position will have its own level of security clearance in whatever agency it is. For example, if you're going to be a special agent, criminal investigator, that is probably going to be a little bit more thorough than if you're going to be processing tax returns. And so, depending on the level of risk for the position, risk for, you know, the exposure to personal data and the risk itself, a routine background check may go far. Talk about it could go back as far as 10 years. So they're looking at criminal activities and driving records and maybe even credit scores. They could go back as far as 10 years for the ones that are probably the most sensitive type of positions. Maybe they might go back only 2 or 3 years, especially if they're looking at compliance of have you filed your tax returns. How long this process takes? Well, this is usually done by either another agency or an independent company, and so it will depend on how big their backlog load is, how many people they have to process. I know they started mine before I was hired, and they concluded about 6 months after I was hired, and that is that's why they have a quote unquote that probationary period for usually about a year, could be up to 2 years, and so they're you know, one of the aspects of that time frame is so that they complete the background check. So it's going to depend upon the position itself, the number of people, who's doing it. How far back they go depends upon those, you know, the position itself. But it's usually you got your application. They're going to extend an offer to you. That information then is forwarded to the persons that do the background check. Sometimes that background check can take as little as a day. They have all the the research tools, and they do it, and they get the report. You know, when they're hiring hundreds and hundreds, it could take, you know, several months before you know, your name came up to be cleared. So they could go back as far as 10 years. Likely they'll only go back maybe several years. Then it gives you an opportunity to explain if you have something unusual, maybe in your interview or later on, if they're questioning you, you have an opportunity to actually explain more of the details of that, or whatever that blip is in the background check. And a lot of times that clears it up, but you never know. So security clearance, it's usually going to happen for the position that you're hired for. They're going to start usually from scratch. It's done by an independent third party. It could be another federal agency that does it, but generally it's not going to be done by the agency. It might be done, but it's common that they do it by a third party, mainly because of the volume involved. I hope that answered a little bit about the security check.
Yeah.
Background check.
That's good. Okay, so now about veterans, we had a couple of questions about you know, being competitive against veterans, or you know, if there are some positions that are reserved just for veterans, and how do you find that out? You know, if you're not a veteran, or perhaps, you know, there's a good message for some of the veterans in our audience if there are some unique opportunities for them.
I will have a separate seminar. We'll talk about special hiring for veterans and the folks with disabled individuals, special programs for that, and I won't go into it into detail today, but I'll give you a kind of a general thing, because this is a common question, and people that are knowledgeable understand this, and it can be very frustrating. There is several executive orders and statutes that promote the hiring of veterans in the federal agencies, and how that works is, so sometimes there are specific jobs only for veterans. So we're not talking about that, because you're not going to be eligible for that. But what happens is some of the veterans will apply for the external announcements that are competitive to anybody, to the general public. And they go through the same process as all applicants. They're going to get their resume, they're going to get their transcripts, they're going to get their any type of certificates, documentations. They're going to get all that in their application file, and they're going to rank them initially. They're going to rank them, and I'll just put them. I'll just put it like they're going to rank them in. I'll just make it simple: A, B, and C. A is the top people, B is the second tier, C is the third tier. And as long as you remain in A, you may be considered for an interview. Not all people in A will get interviews, but only when they exhausted all the A's will they even consider someone in the B category. So if you're a veteran, what happens is there are certain programs, what they call veterans preferences. Perhaps they served in a military action. Perhaps they were wounded. Perhaps they're disabled. And so they have additional points, so to speak. So when they process your application, they're going to, you know, based upon your grade point average, based upon your work experience, based upon your certificates, they're going to give you certain numbers. And finally, they're going to say, you got this particular number, and that puts you in category A. Well, what happens with veterans is that because they're veterans and they meet certain criteria, for example, they served in the Iraq conflict, Iraq war, or they served in combat, or they're part of different operations, and they get certain additional points. It's called a veterans preference. They get like a 5 points or additional 10 points, and so that's added to their other applications. So what generally happens is that additional 5 points or 10 points may catapult them to the top of their category. So if they're initially in a B category, they may be top of the B, but they'll never get into the A category because they don't consider veterans preference when they're classifying into what category they are eligible for. You know, where they're ranked is probably the better way of saying it. If they're in the A category, that additional 5 or 10 points may allow them to be at the very top. And so when they look at people that they're considering interviews, they look at pretty much the top people, and maybe a lot of them are veterans. And so a lot of people are not selected because of the additional points for veterans, and it can be very frustrating. So you as an applicant can't do really anything about it. You can only be able to present your skill set, present your educational background in the best favorable way by something to suggest is look at specific duties of the position and try to get specific examples for each element of those duties, and that's probably going to be able to maximize your potential of moving to the top of that category, that A category right there. So some veterans, they're entitled to additional points. That point is added to their other points that they got in their application within that category. They can never change categories. If they're in a B, they'll never get in the A. So if you're in the A, you're not going to be worried about those. But it may be enough points to catapult them to leapfrog in front of the other qualified applicants. That's kind of how the statute works, and that's something that you should be aware of too. But you're not going to know any of that. You're not going to know how many veterans applied, even how many got interviewed. Just because they're a veteran, they applied doesn't even mean they were even going to accept the offer for an interview.
You said something that was, I think, particularly important and is worth repeating. You said that, what any one applicant can do is focus on how they can be the best applicant. And one way to do that is to be very specific in how they address the, qualifications of the job. So that could be in their resume or their application, right? But getting to specific examples of how they have the experience desired or the accomplishments desired, that's how someone can really stand out, right?
Right. If you're just saying I got a 3.7 grade point average and leave it at that, you're giving statistics, fine. But what does that incorporate? Well, I double majored in chemistry and biology or German, or I took these AP classes, or in addition to working, or in addition to going to school full time, I was also working, or I was also involved with athletics, or also involved with extracurricular activities, involved with the community, the church, or something like that. You're showing that you're getting more story behind the numbers, so to speak, and the more specific that you can enhance your resume or your qualifications, the better it will be. Because what happens is the people will, the HR specialists, the people actually qualify individuals, they say they have 5 duties for this position. What they're going to do is they're going to rank every duty, on a scale, let's say 1 to 5. Okay, this applicant, boy, they give a lot of examples on this particular duty number 1, they're going to give you a 5. You could have somebody who get 5s on 3 of the duties and not even address the other 2 duties, and guess what? They're going to get 0s on those other duties. And that right there might put them below other candidates who may got 3s and 4s on all the other ones. And if they got 3 5s, they only got a 15. And they got 0s on the other 2. Duties or duties of the particular position. When the personnel people, the HR people rank those, they're going to look at each duty and they're going to assign a ranking number to those duties. And the more specific that you can get, or the more addressing each one of them, you're going to probably get points for that. But the more specific you are, the more detail that you can give in each of those categories, each of those duty categories, the higher you're going to get for each one of those duties, and that number is going to only help you to differentiate yourself between other candidates.
Right. Okay, we had just a couple of questions around international students or those not citizens. And you mentioned that many opportunities require U.S. citizenship. Someone asked a question specifically about green card holders and then also international education. I guess, what's your advice for those, they have a green card, or that the international education. I mean, should they focus on specific and limited opportunities, or just, I don't know. What do you suggest they do?
Another great question. There are, so in the Pathways program offers, let's say, internships, and so they have opportunities for people that are freshmen, people that are juniors, people that are just about to graduate, people even after they've graduated. So all the programs would be under the Pathways program. Pathways, one word. If they look under Pathways, under the Office of Management and Budget, I think OMB, they have a great description of that. They're the ones who set the parameters, or they're the ones who set the criteria for the whole Pathways program. Now, and the objective to most of these is to automatically convert them into a permanent position. And since the permanent positions require usually a U.S. citizenship, those programs generally are not available to non-U.S. citizens. However, there are some unpaid interns where they're just gaining experience, and that's with the discretion of the agency. And whether or not the agency allows people with green cards or not, it's left of the individual agency. See, they're not going to be converted into a full-time employee, so they don't have to worry about those parameters of being a U.S. citizen. They're not part of the competitive process. If it's a non-competitive process, a volunteer position, then they may, depending on the agency, the agency may allow people holding green cards and bring them on board to gain that experience. But there are, again, that's going to depend upon the agency. And there are some exceptions too. If you're a postal carrier, there are some exceptions of not being necessarily a U.S. citizen. Some of the positions with the FBI doesn't require them to have a U.S. citizen. Again, maybe the CIA, I'm not sure on that, but that you're going to have to look at that particular agency's website and see if there are opportunities for non-U.S. citizens.
Right. Okay. And is education outside the U.S., is it generally if it's SIM accreditation, is it accepted?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you a little bit what I know about it. And the people that actually do the qualifications, they have this whole matrix of what is acceptable education and what's not acceptable education, of not only within the United States but outside of the U.S. And so if you got a degree, a master's degree in accounting over in Spain, how does that translate to the education requirements for the positions here? A lot of times they do transfer, especially if it's accredited school. If there are corresponding, classes, equivalent classes for the requirements. Sometimes the auditing requires certain skills. Remember those intermediate accounting? They have something equivalent to that, or auditing classes, or basic accounting. They have something equivalent to where you got your accounting degree or degree overseas. So a lot of it. So they will consider. They always consider it, and the more detail, if the HR specialists, the people in the persons that are qualifying don't have access to that, what they do is they actually go contact the school and try to find a course description, and sometimes that's where the applicant can get involved and say, hey, what did you do? Tell me a little bit about the course, or I did this particular project, and that helps. But they'll do a lot of times it will transfer, but not necessarily all of it, especially if it's accredited. Then there's a likelihood that it would transfer. Just the problem is what's required if a degree in a foreign country may not be the requirement under the U.S. standards for that particular degree. So they're going to look at course schedules or courses and the course description and see if there is enough overlap to meet the qualifications for the positions. So generally any major school, any accredited school overseas is going to transfer the requirements. I've seen that many times, many times.
Okay. Okay, I have one more question I think we'll be able to address today, and then we'll make reference to our plans for upcoming sessions that will allow us to go into a bit more detail. That
Sure.
Many people wanted some, I think they want to know, show me the steps, what do I need to do? So that'll be great to cover in future details. But one person did ask about being covered or protected under the union. If there are specific positions, titles, or exams that are needed to be able to be under the union.
Great question, and it's a little bit different than in the public sector. Most positions are, especially entry-level positions, are bargaining unit positions, meaning they're covered by the collective bargaining unit between the National Federal Employees Association. I'll just make it kind of simple and generic, and the agency itself. And they sign a contract, and it's covered about different things as far as, when can I work at home, for what positions qualify, and what about benefits, and what about grievances and stuff like that. They state it out in the contract. There are some positions that are non-bargaining unit. They're covered under non-bargaining. Perhaps an HR specialist is covered by a non-bargaining unit, and they have representatives by the United States Labor Board. And so they're covered by kind of a union representation. But as far as the union contract, most bargaining unit positions, I think I might have misspoke there. Most bargaining unit positions, when covered by a union contract, usually get the option upon part of your orientation. You have the option to have payroll deduction to join that. If you don't, they are by contract required to represent you. You may not get there may be some additional representation you can get as a paying member, but by statute, they have to cover all members, all employees that are, the position itself is a bargaining unit position. There are a lot of perks if you become a member, but you get covered pretty much as soon as you start the position, start the job itself. So so it's usually covered generally automatically, but there are a lot more broader coverage if you become a member, and you'll get that option throughout your career if you haven't joined already, but starting with the orientation when you first start the position.
Okay, great. I think with that, we will just look forward to upcoming, at least one session. I'm thinking, when we get closer to maybe the start of the next next semester, so August or September, some details on getting them ready and effectively applied through usajobs.gov. And maybe we can use some specific examples because, I think there's interest in how they would look at a job description and make sure they understand what they could qualify for and where that may fall in the GS levels. And then there are also, of course, some interest in, I think, some specific IRS opportunities, so around criminal investigation agent and, some forensic accounting opportunities. So Chris and I...
Let me just...
Go ahead.
Oh, I want to address one other thing. Yeah, there were some questions. I just take just a moment here. The methods that we use as auditors, whether it be in the Securities Exchange Commission, the FDIC, the IRS, they apply the methods of forensic accounting. So pretty much all your auditors are going to use forensic accounting, and that's part of the training that they're going to get. And so even though it's kind of a hot topic, so to speak, but we've been using that since throughout my entire career. They've applied those methods. Let me give you one website, and because there are some questions about the CI agent position, what entails, and what about positions for a person with a law degree. What about maybe other positions like a tax law specialist, or people who have certain other skills, actuaries skills, and that. There is a website, and this is our career website at the IRS, and it shows you a little bit about some job descriptions and the job duties of a whole array of different types of positions. And of course, I apologize for not having a slide on this, and we'll get this again in a little bit more detail in a subsequent webinar. But at the World Wide Web site, jobs.irs.gov, and so jobs.irs.gov. So in there, you can find out information regarding veterans. You can find out information regarding disability hiring. You can find out information about different types of entry-level positions that they have, whether you're in accounting or finance or actuary, or maybe you find out different positions, some positions that we have in other areas too. And not only that, there are also YouTube videos and some vignettes of people telling their personal experience about their particular job, and sometimes it's a little easier to listen to someone than to read about it. So it kind of goes into a general area of maybe some of the miscellaneous questions that we didn't get to today. So again, that might be another source where you can get some of these answers for you. Again, www.jobs.irs.gov. It's not case sensitive, so you're golden there. So thanks, Deanna.
Sure. No, thank you. That's great. And I'm showing your thank you slide, and I just typed that in so that those listening to this recording can see the website there. Okay. So that's great. Excellent. Okay, great. Is there anything I missed, Chris, in asking you that you wanted to make sure you covered?
Just that, there was one question about if I applied, if I'm in another state and I applied, I'm in Jersey and I applied for a position in New York, am I going to be at a disadvantage from the candidates that are applying in-state for that particular federal position? And the answer is no. One quick question, or one quick statement. I had a student of mine, and he was a sharp student, and he was about to get married, and he just graduated, going to get married that summer, and he was looking for a federal job, and they said, Chris, I was up in the Michigan area, and he said, well, I want to, we're going to move down to Austin. I said, well, why don't you just apply directly to Austin? You don't have to worry about maybe, working here in Michigan and maybe try to transfer down there in a couple years, and just apply down there. And a good success story. He did apply. He was very fortunate to get an interview, and he end up selecting. And he wrote me a letter and said they got married and they really enjoyed their environment down there. It's kind of what they've always wanted. So they got a little bit of got settled in Texas and not Texas, but Texas. And so there is absolutely no preference for people that apply from one state to another state. They just say, hey, the opening is in this office, and it starts on this date, and that's it. And if you can make it, and you can change your lifestyle, great. We had one of my other students. He wanted to join the IRS, and his family was here in Michigan, but we had no opportunities. He actually worked in Boston for about 2 years, and then was able to find an opening here in Detroit, and then reunited with his family and a sharp guy and another success. So those opportunities do happen. So whether or not you want to maybe end up in a certain location or apply in a certain out of state, initially, it's not going to affect one way or another on the application process or preferences. It's just how you apply yourself in the interview. That's just one of the things I wanted to finish up with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. Thank you. This has been fantastic, and we'll be back again with even more information. But thanks, everybody, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Deanna, and appreciate you taking the time. All you folks joining us on the webinar today. Look forward to a next discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.